Hello, Bitcoin land. Today is Friday, December 22nd, and we got episode 66 of Block Digest for you, coming to you at block height 500,612. So let's dive right into the holy fucking mind-blowing shitstorm that's just Jesus Christ. So for those who haven't seen the news flying around everywhere, here is a Coinbase address that has 203 Bitcoin stored on it and a million plus outputs. Now, I did some very, very, very rough napkin math on this. And assuming a figure of, say, 100 bytes per input, which is it's a little conservative. It's kind of rounding it down a little bit. In the current fee market, where you have a fee level that is pretty much equal to the block subsidy, it would cost 1,000 Bitcoin to spend this 200 Bitcoin. So that's a factor of 5 times the actual amount in that address to move it on chain with the amount of data it would take. And even if you take advantage of a neat little trick that Nopara pointed out in one of the threads following this, that would pretty much spend it as an anybody can spend directly to miners' fees. If you could get a miner to kind of just not be a dick and steal it, it would have no signature data, which is roughly 60% of most transaction input sizes. That would reduce the size of that by 60%, which would still roughly be around 400 Bitcoin to spend this. So even going all out, finding a way to strip out the signature data, getting a miner to do this without stealing these coins, it would still cost twice the actual value in the address to spend these. Now, if this is not just an isolated incident with a few addresses that they've kind of been not paying attention to, if a large chunk of their coins are stored in this manner, Coinbase is fucked. Like, this would pretty much be equivalent to them being insolvent. And if they do have a large chunk of their coins stored like this, and this is not an isolated incident, this is one of the most mind-boggling, unexplainable fuck-ups in this entire space. Like, I am not aware of a single large business that does not regularly consolidate the UTXOs. I mean, like I pointed out last week, BitPay actually explicitly acknowledges this as a cost that they pass on to their users because it's something that they have to do. Other large exchanges like Bitfinex do this regularly. Poloniex does this regularly. A single one-man gambling business, if you know what Bust-A-Bit is, does this regularly. If a large fraction of Coinbase's coins have not had their UTXOs consolidated and are just dust outputs like this, they have pretty much destroyed their business, like completely and utterly. And most of the coins that they hold in these addresses are not actually economically deliverable to their customers if they so choose to demand them withdrawn from Coinbase and put in their own control. So, yeah, I mean, we've got a few things in the links you can read. A post by Jameson Lopp on how to manage the outputs in your wallets. This other decision tree as an individual user to kind of help you cost minimize the fees for condensing your own outputs. And yeah,
well,
I mean,
before
everybody
you
else jump in. I've kind of just got the rant out of my system.
Yeah, if you go back quickly to Jameson Lopp's article, if you notice the date on it, it's February 2015. He's been warning people about this for over 2 years, guys. So Coinbase, if you haven't taken notice of this and why it's necessary, maybe you should have paid attention back in the day when, fees were actually low. But no, you probably looked at this and you thought, fees are low. We don't have to do this. Who cares? There's going to be no consequences. Fast forward to 2017. That's a bit of a problem, isn't it?
Yeah, I mean, like, this is like, I mean, like, go ahead, Rick. I'm just gonna just say Jesus Christ and holy shit, and yeah.
No, I mean, like, it's similarly, like, I was gonna say the same. I mean, it's just it's ridiculous, you know, right on the heels of this Bcash launch on Coinbase, and you see that this is the way that they're handling their Bitcoin, you know, and behind the scenes. And yeah, it's really upsetting. It's like someone who lives in the United States, that this is our go-to guys as our exchange. And you know, it's really aggravating and upsetting. And I hope that you know, Coinbase will do something to make a move to settle the market sentiment with that exchange, like getting rid of Brian Armstrong, and maybe hiring some new engineers to try and manage this situation. Because if the number one exchange in the United States that operates here in the U.S. for most of the customers in the United States is insolvent, and that's a big problem. Like it's something where I've already seen like multiple ideas tossed around as far as like, are they going to launch a token, or are they going to, you know, maybe put this cost burden on their customers, and, you know, maybe set a fee or something to try and manage the situation. Because it's really one of those where it's just like, if you didn't manage your Bitcoin technically to where you have all these UTXOs somewhere where you could actually spend them, then yeah, you really screwed yourself. And yeah, that being the main exchange here in the United States is just very aggravating. And you know, we say it, need more competitors and all that. I mean, like, I've recently started getting my Gemini exchange, getting back access to that, and to my Bitstamp account, because yeah, this is just ridiculous. I mean, like, I made a purchase on this move downward because, you know, I'm buying the dips, and now I'm like wondering if I'll even have access to that whenever it becomes available. So we'll see how it goes, but it's certainly just a bigger shit show than ever at Coinbase or Conbase. It's really really upsetting. Somebody that has to go through them often.
Yeah, totally. I definitely want to put in a plug for Bisq. I think that's the way to go. A good decentralized exchange that there is no middleman. And I think, you know, what's interesting about this is that it's another way that Coinbase could screw you if you're letting them manage your Bitcoin. You know, we've already seen stuff like Mt. Gox and tons of exchanges. They just lose it, or they claim they got hacked, or they just go away for a nice trip or something, right? But this is interesting because it's just they can make your Bitcoin useless just by not managing it right. And that's not something that a normal user is going to even have a real challenge with, right? Like you're not going to have a tendency to create this kind of circumstance on your own. So again, just manage your own keys, own your own Bitcoin, buy a hardware wallet.
Yeah, I mean, this is just mind-boggling, because like this just shows the level of incompetence and the degree to which they assumed they could just continue externalizing the operating costs of their business pretty much ad infinitum on their users. And like it's ridiculous. Like, this is something that any responsible business in this space does as a matter of course of just operating their business. And I mean, if we really step back and think about this, I mean, the entire push for 2x, the entire history of them, like this year, just rabidly arguing for bigger blocks, and the shit that they just tried to pull with Bcash. I mean, it's just painting a picture of such like desperately pathetic incompetence that I just don't know what the hell to think at this point. I mean, like, is it really outside of the realm of reason that they honestly thought they could just kind of go, Bitcoin Cash is Bitcoin now, and just ignore the Bitcoin chain and pretend this isn't a problem, pretend that they don't owe their customers the assets on the Bitcoin chain, and then it's just not a problem on the Bitcoin Cash chain because they can just bloat the UTXO set forever. They don't have to worry about the cost of block space. And I mean, if that's the case, like that's just insane. Like if that was legitimately their business plan as a company that has taken venture capital money, they deserve to burn. And this is going to be one of the harshest lessons in the history of this entire space for people who invest their money in infrastructure and companies instead of just directly into Bitcoin. Like you do your homework, or you will effectively be lighting your money on fire if you put it in the hands of idiots.
Yeah, one thing I want to show about that, if you could get that link up that I just posted, it was written by Nopara just about half an hour ago.
Did I just get the right window? Or... Oops. Okay, there we go.
There, Janine? Mike went out on us.
Uh-oh. GCHQ got her.
Uh-oh. It does look like Nopara did just release this right before we went on.
Mm-hmm. But all right, I guess until Janine gets back, I'll take a stab at this. Well, I guess Chaumian Ecash banks are kind of an old idea. For anybody not familiar, it's kind of the idea of having a centralized server that pretty much what it would do is have you generate a private key, and then it would actually sign that key and kind of keep track of it. It's in its own database. And you could kind of just pass that key off to somebody else, and they would redeem it with the eCash bank, who would then kind of delete that from their records, have the person you sent that key to generate their own key, which they would sign. And it's kind of like we destroy this and then issue them a new one. And in that way, it kind of functions like a bearer instrument, but not in the conventional sense where you can just kind of pass the same key around all the time. The paying would be, I give you the key and you instantly redeem that, and then have like the bank effectively notarize one for yourself, so that you don't really have the issue of like keys being duplicated and pretty much recreating the entire double spend problem that we obviously have the blockchain and proof of work for. And yeah, kind of just trying to free flow, hoping Janine comes back. I haven't even seen and read this.
I mean, like, could this have been something to help Coinbase avoid this problem with the accumulating dust?
Well, I mean, potentially, because if they'd been managing their outputs and then condensing them periodically, like a model like this would kind of allow users to interact with other businesses and engage in commerce without Coinbase having to like create or destroy outputs or manage anything on the chain. They would effectively be condensing their outputs optimally and then using these Chaumian Ecash keys as kind of like something directly backed by that. But you hear Janine now? Yeah, your internet working?
Yeah, I'm back. So weirdly enough, I had a Firefox instance open and it almost crashed my computer. Thanks, Mozilla. You've done a great job recently.
Ouch. But I pretty much just ran through like a TLDR, what a Chaumian Ecash bank is. If you want to just take it from there.
Yeah, well, the really the only, because I didn't get a chance to fully read through the thing, but I liked that he had these 3 lines at the top if you scroll down a little bit. So he distinguishes that, you know, the main problems, at least with regards to Bitcoin, is that custodial entities can inflate the money supply. They also have control over the funds of their customers, and they know they have significant information about their customers' activity. So one of the things I want to point out with regards to that last point, this was something that I actually tweeted back in November 2016. I'll send it to you. because I think it's important to recognize that when you're using these exchanges, all of your activity is being tracked. And in particular, Coinbase is one of the companies that uses browser fingerprinting. So if you're not familiar with browser fingerprinting, it's actually a scarier thing. You've probably heard of cookies. You know, you want to block third-party cookies because they track you on the web. Well, browser fingerprinting is even worse because it not only looks at your browser, it also tries to detect what operating system you're using, and it looks at other characteristics of like basically how you're connecting to the site, like the version of the browser you're using, your location, all kinds of things that, you know, it's a lot more intrusive than cookies. And Coinbase is one of the companies that uses browser fingerprinting. Now, I'm pretty sure that they're going to use the anti-fraud excuse for why they do fingerprinting, because that's always the excuse. But realize that, you know, if you're a Coinbase user, I mean, obviously, you know, to some extent, you've already doxed yourself to them, because you have, if you want to be verified, you have to give your name and everything. But you're also giving a lot more information to them about yourself besides your name. You're giving like what operating system you're using, and also what kind of computer you're using, and all that kind of stuff. So they're performing a significant amount of surveillance on you, and I assume that now that they're going to be giving a lot of data about activity to the IRS soon, I would be very curious to know whether they're going to be including any of this browser fingerprinting data that they've been collecting for years.
Just don't think it could get any worse. And yeah, now I need to go check LifeLock, make sure I'm all right.
Yeah, that's definitely a worry. I mean, like obviously we've kind of covered, I believe, before on the show, the issues with metadata when you're dealing with shopping carts, and how that can be used to actually correlate different Bitcoin addresses with cookies stored in your browser, and other pretty much side effects of just the inherent way that everything on the internet works. But yeah, that's definitely a big issue. But to kind of like just touch back on the Chaumian e-banks real quick, you know, like I myself want something like Lightning Network or Tumblebit, something that is actually decentralized, where I am entirely in control of the actual Bitcoin, whether it's through some second layer or the main chain itself. But in the case of people who are comfortable kind of making the trade-off away from that kind of thing, I think that Chaumian e-banks would be a good model for doing that, because you would, as an institution operating something like this, be able to audit the reserves of Bitcoin on the chain that you're actually backing these with, and the nature of how you pretty much have like the key functioning as an instantly redeemable note. You could actually have an audit trail that isn't really giving up any kind of information about users as to how many of these like private key notes are floating around, like when they're redeemed and new ones are issued. So while it would be centralized in the fact that you could be locked out of it, or you know, it's not entirely permissionless, it would be entirely open and auditable. So it would be a kind of model where people would instantly be able to know, like, hey, these numbers aren't adding up, like something funny is going on. And I really think this is something that should be kind of considered going forward, because I mean, you know, I'm not cool with making those kinds of trade-offs myself, but there are people who would be, and it's really not my decision to make for them. I'm going to make the decisions that I am with my own money, and in the same right that I'm going to do that, another person should be free to make the decisions of how they want to manage their money. And I think like the kind of nuance of these different kinds of trade-offs and models, especially when they're entirely opt-in, is something people should be a little more open with discussing going forward over the next few years.
Yeah, I don't think it's a terrible idea. I'm starting to get a little bit more zen about the whole situation, in the sense that I know that we're excited about, you know, the wealth transfer from sort of the oligarchs and the inside men that are doing insider trading and printing money and preventing, you know, the average guy from getting ahead and being able to actually have a savings account. But the other thing that's happening with Bitcoin is we're seeing value transfer from like stupid day traders, right, to people that are a little bit smarter. And I kind of hate the idea that we're going to have to go through these centralized exchanges going down and then all of that money getting transferred to either some hacker or some corrupt CEO or something. But those guys are probably not going to damage the the price discovery mechanism as much as a bunch of monkeys in the system just like freaking out and smashing buttons. So I don't know. I mean, I don't like it. I don't like to see people get ripped off, but man, if you've got a ton of money in Coinbase right now, you're as dangerous as anybody.
Yeah, and hopefully it'll push towards like more decentralized exchanges, like you're saying, like BISC, and it'll get more traffic that way. I mean, like, I know that this has driven me to where I'm working double time to make sure that I have access to my Gemini account and my Bitstamp account because, like, yeah, I mean, like, as these things fail, I mean, like, you go towards somewhere where, those problems don't really exist, but, as things continue, like, maybe we'll all start to move towards these decentralized exchanges and we'll get away from the centralized trouble because, all this we're screaming up in the air about Coinbase right now, but just like 2-3 weeks ago, it was all Tether and Bitfinex and the things going on behind the scenes there. And I mean, these exchanges and their custodial, duties for their customers, they have access to a lot of liquidity and, you can do something with that when it comes to making money. And, as long as that situation's there, we're still going to have these people with a lot of keys that are moving things around and making money. And so as things start to break up, it might get better. So yeah, it's rough going, but it'll get better.
Yeah.
Yeah. And me personally, I've never used any custodial exchange so far, and I don't plan to at this point unless something arises where I desperately need to, because like literally I'd have to be desperate to use these, because honestly, like a year ago I just didn't like the idea of giving my cryptocurrency to a custodian. But after the past year, let's just say, after learning a bunch of things that I can't really talk about in public, that just makes me even less enthusiastic about using any of these custodial exchanges, because let me tell you, they are all messed up. Every single one of them is messed up in some way. Some of them are messed up in greater degrees than others, but they are all messed up. So I am looking forward to trustless exchanges, and also, continuing to encourage people to utilize things like local Bitcoins, where it's entirely or as offline as possible, and also things like Open Dime, which is also very offline, obviously. Yeah.
If you've never bought Bitcoin if you're in the US and you've never bought Bitcoin through the postal service, you really should try it. Just buy like $100 worth just to have the experience. It's really, you can go out to localbitcoins.com, you can search for cash by mail. There's no chance somebody's going to mug you or anything terrible like that, right? Because you're not even going to be there in person. Worst case scenario, somebody that's done 1,000+ trades and has never ripped anybody off and has great reviews decides they're going to steal your $100. But you're not going to get stabbed, and you're not going to have your name in a list somewhere that's getting passed around of potential people that have a lot of Bitcoin and should be attacked, right? So it's just a good trade-off. And yeah, you might spend 10% more. It's probably more like 3 or 4% though. So if you haven't done it, just do it once, because it's a very refreshing experience.
Yeah, and I guess if I wanted to donate Bitcoin to the UPS, I would send it through the mail.
Yeah, I need to set up a Bitcoin.
No, you send the cash through the mail. The Bitcoin, you get the Bitcoin on the network. That's what it's for.
I got you.
Oh, okay. Well, I just hope that Eric Voorhees has a very it's very locked down in terms of where he lives and things like that, because I don't want his mail to start getting stolen, because now he's pointed out to everyone that he apparently mails Bitcoin through UPS.
Wow.
Oh man.
Oh, did you guys not see that?
No.
Did you not see that tweet?
That.
Oh, I have to get it here.
Yes.
Just a second. I'll get it right now.
I
Oh
think
my
him and
God.
Roger were just, you
I
know,
thought
they were drinking
this-
a little too much when he decided to tweet that out.
This whole time, that's what I thought you were referencing. It's like, oh, UPS, you read Eric Voorhees' tweet. And then you didn't. I was like, oh, okay. You have to see it then. Come on, Twitter.
What's he using? Like a paper wallet or an open dime?
I have no idea.
Is this some nonsense about the fees being too high? Is that what this is about?
Why would you
Oh,
think
man.
that? Why would you think that? Of course
This is
it
the
is.
stupidest thing I've heard all day, and every stupid thing I've heard all day has been about high fees.
Hey, JW. Okay. I will give you that Eric Voorhees is probably doing it in a stupid fucking way. But I have actually been thinking about this for a little while. And pretty much my thought is if you have something like an open dime, just send the coins to it with a hash lock. And you could put it in the mail. You could tie it to a pigeon. You could give it to some courier to go run someplace. And if the dumbass tries to steal it, it's not fungible without the piece of data you used for the hash lock. They can break the seal. They can take it, but yeah, hey, you're not going to ever be able to get it off that open dime because you don't know what information was used for the hash lock. So give it to somebody and sell it. They can see if they check it and aren't a doofus that it's hash locked and the guy doesn't have the piece of data. So you could actually secure something like that, but I don't think Eric Voorhees is that smart.
No, I mean you're right. Like, what does it cost to send an envelope? Like 25 cents or 75 cents or whatever it is now. So you could do that, and it'd take a few days. But the fees aren't that bad, right? Like if you can spend a few days, you could probably get a 1 Satoshi per byte transaction. And we got to remember that the only reason fees are so high right now is that there's like an unusual spike of demand, right? So if you're not trying to only buy out of just crazy fear, or sell out of crazy fear, you're not transacting right now anyway, right? And if you are, then just disguise yourself as spam and put in a transaction that's like a 1 Satoshi per byte, because the miners have been trying to screw things up by including low fee transactions in the block and ignoring higher fee transactions. So it's you have to game it a little bit. And when these guys are playing games and they're mining empty blocks and doing other bullshit, they can slow down the network, right? It's just part of the thing. But every time they do that, they get a little bit poorer. And I think that's the best we can hope for.
Yeah, but it's, I just kind of like to show people, it's like you can think outside of the box. Because, I mean, imagine some really, really remote village in a mountaintop in Colombia where people are just dirt poor. They have some old computer that could barely run a node. Well, hey, if they can get a satellite dish to that and get a copy of the blockchain, well, they don't need to pay for a satellite uplink. They don't need to try to find some way to get internet coverage up to this mountaintop in the middle of nowhere, because with that satellite link and what I just described with an open dime, you can move money through that and you can actually validate it and you can make it theft proof to move it like that. You just got to think outside the box, and there is a way to fit Bitcoin into any niche out there. People just need to stop focusing on a stupid variable and acting like putting everything in a data center is how to fix the problems. It's just get inventive. There is literally nothing but your imagination limiting what you can do with Bitcoin.
Yeah. I mean, it's funny to me too, how this whole situation with Coinbase was kind of them causing this trouble with the whole rising of the fees and, not implementing SegWit. And yeah, I mean, this also what going back to what JW was saying about how, you just kind of have to game it a little bit. And, that's something where I feel like a lot of people, they think Bitcoin's supposed to behave the way that they have performed with currencies in the past. And it's no, this is a learning process. And sometimes, you might not necessarily be able to move that amount, or you might try to do what, JW saying, just put in a low fee and see if a miner will include it in a block. There's there's things that you can do to get around this high fee problem. You know, you could just wait a little while till the fees go down. But, you know, I understand it's like a problem for, you know, fungibility. But I mean, like, it's just the way I see that system is like, this is the way we have to work with Bitcoin right now. I mean, like, once SegWit's fully implemented and everybody's running on these addresses and fees are low and we know they're going to be low, then, you know, we could start talking about maybe working it a different way. But for right now, this is the way we work with Bitcoin.
Yeah, we got to think of it as like beta software, right? This stuff is not, we're not ready to support all the transactions in the world. Nobody, you know, increasing the block size to a terabyte, I don't even think if we could do that, which obviously we can't, I don't even think that that would be enough for every single person in the world to be making several transactions a day. So this is really, really early days. It took a long time before the internet could do streaming video. So let's be a little bit patient with it. You know, we're still going to have to hack our way through for a few more years, but the technology gets better every day. We've got like a brilliant roadmap that solves all the problems that I'm even aware of right now. That's pretty amazing, but we shouldn't expect it to be here right now.
Mm-hmm.
And in the meantime, actually use wallets who are good at fee estimation, and use hardware wallets, and especially learn about the little hacks you can do with exchanges, like with Coinbase, where you can send transactions to, I guess, emails. You can put someone's email in instead of a address, and they do like an internal transaction, which isn't actually a transaction, and so you don't have to pay the fee. So think of things like that first before, because like I've used hardware wallets. I think the one in the decision tree that was recommended was Green Address. Like, the people using these wallets don't really have a hard time with fees. Like, they have gone up. Obviously, they've gone up for everyone, but not nearly as much as Eric Voorhees is saying, with like $40 or $4,000. Apparently, he paid a $4,000 fee for 15 Bitcoin. That seems a bit much.
Yeah, that's not like there were probably hundreds and hundreds of inputs in there or something stupid. It was a totally average transaction that your normal holder would make on a regular basis.
You know, it's funny. I guarantee you there was a 1 Satoshi per byte transaction in his $4,000 block. You know, wherever that transaction is, if you look, there's going to be some really tiny buggers that slid through there. He just didn't take the time to do it.
And I bet most of them weren't SegWit either.
Yeah, totally. I mean, you can still get, like right now, if you do a transaction and you put it at 50 cents and you're willing to wait a few days, I almost guarantee it's going to be through.
Mm-hmm. And to kind of slide along from fees, but still shit on Coinbase a little bit. So here's a tweet from Mike Johnson, somebody from CoinFire. It's a Bitcoin news site. They do reviews, editorials, cover the news. He's claiming to literally be holding in his hand, as he typed this, an SEC memo showing proof that there was insider knowledge used to trade with the Bcash situation, and that a Coinbase employee actually went to the SEC with proof of this. So, I mean, like, Jesus, like, I just gotta say, guys, with like all this Tether FUD and everybody fucking freaking out about Bitfinex imploding, like, left field, motherfuckers. No, Coinbase is fucked. Coinbase is so fucked.
Yeah, you know, I mean, like, it's, you know, still speculation or whatever, but I mean, like, it's not speculation that the way that BCH was launched, and we know that there's employees that definitely had some information about this, and, you know, I mean, it's not that much speculation to think one of them thought it was wrong and went to the SEC, and now this guy's holding a letter from him, a memo, talking about how Coinbase and Brian Armstrong are in some deep woods. I don't know, but yeah, it's speculation at this point, but it wouldn't surprise me that much at all.
What is that always says about was it Bernie Madoff? He made the one mistake you're not allowed to make. He stole from the rich. I love that this is happening after the CME is on board, right? Because now there's motivation.
Yeah, and I think because I did read that thread briefly before we came on the show, and he alluded to, apparently he's done these kinds of things in the past where he comes out with, you know, scandalous information like this, or he's talked to a source that has insider information about it, and he says he's gotten burned a lot of times before, and that his life has been threatened, or he's gotten stuff in the mail, dangerous stuff in the mail. So I haven't looked into that. I've never seen him before, so I can't any of his claims. But honestly, like I said, none of this would surprise me, because I mean, it's so obvious that something went wrong. Like there's no other explanation for how, you know, you had that much volume trading into Bitcoin Cash right before that conveniently before that announcement that was secret, that was completely diverting from the roadmap that they released, or at least it wasn't reflected in the roadmap. Like, something is going on here. And I don't want to be the Bitfinex of Coinbase. Although in this case, there's actual evidence with Coinbase, you know, charting stuff and you know, actual events in terms of market manipulation that we can plainly see. So yeah.
Yeah, I have to admit that I was really pissed off at Coinbase for about a week before this happened. Particularly pissed off at them. So I'm just enjoying it. I would be happy to be the Bitfinex of Coinbase at this point.
Yeah, I would actually enjoy it. I would go so far to say.
I also find it kind of rich because, you know, like I said, I know things about exchanges that I can't talk about. And it was just so frustrating to know that all of that stuff was happening, like other related things were happening at exchanges. But they were all being silent while Bitfinex was getting torn apart, which I would completely agree some of it is justified. But all of you exchanges out there being silent, that's not going to work for very long. I'm sorry, it's not going to work because your silence won't save you. You might as well just come out now.
Yeah, I think they, you know, even before all this happened, they had built so much ill will with the Bitcoin community, right? Like by supporting Bitcoin XT, Bitcoin Unlimited, SegWit 2x. Like it was definitely, there was a lot of dry tinder ready to go off when these guys screwed something up. I mean, I don't think any of us expected it to be this big of a screw up, but yeah, you can't really piss on your users for a really long time and just enrage everybody that has any understanding of what's going on in Bitcoin, and expect them not to kind of celebrate when you screw up this big.
Mm-hmm. And I mean, Rick Penderson in the chat just said that this is making Yobit sound safe. They are. I started shitcoin trading around 3 years ago after my first year in the space, and I completely forgot about my Yobit account, left it sitting there for 3 years, and when I remembered about it, checked up, all my shitcoins were there. The little bit of Bitcoin I had was still there. They'd given me my Bitcoin Cash and my Bitcoin Gold, and I was able to convert all of this to Bitcoin and pull it off with no problems. So, yeah, objectively saying, I would have to agree, Rick. One of the biggest shitcoin exchanges in this ecosystem is safer than Coinbase.
Yeah, for me, the biggest, like the tweet that I've kept sharing over and over again because, you know, it just keeps getting proved as a good prediction was the fact that, you know, I committed back in, I think it was June, not to use Coinbase ever, and the reason I said that was because that was when Catherine Hahn, the federal prosecutor who was not involved in the first Silk Road case with Ross Ulbricht. She was involved in the second one with the second, like Silk Road 2.0. She was the prosecutor for that. That was a red flag for me when she joined Coinbase. You know, that was still within the period of time where they were being investigated by the IRS. Like, I'm sorry, does anyone not see that that was a giant red flag to the fact that, you know, some Coinbase had been compromised at that point? Like, to me, that was a signal, like, get out.
Well, it definitely wasn't a signal that they're like super technically competent and they're just you know, working to make Bitcoin great. That definitely wasn't how I think anybody read that.
Yeah, I don't know, man. This has been something where I've been hearing some people in the mumble, you know, where it's like super exciting, and to where I'm kind of like, it's like a replay, it's like a flashback, but there's just so much light on this space right now. And yeah, this I don't know, it's these moves, like with all this insider trading and obvious like bucket shops being run, I think that those days are starting to get numbered. It's just like this light is, you know, like a year ago, this could have happened, and I don't think the SEC really would have been mentioned that much. But this year, it's, yeah, I wouldn't be that surprising to hear the SEC is going to come knocking on Brian Armstrong's door. I would love to be there for that.
Yeah, it's going to be a weird year. So, I mean, you know, I'm as libertarian leaning as most of the early guys in this space, but you know, the thing at the end of the day, or two things actually at the end of the day, a lot of libertarians and anarchists in this space need to kind of make peace with is one, disagreeing with it doesn't make government stop existing. There's still things in the world that have the ability to exercise force to enforce things that you have to deal with. And two, in a strictly voluntary sense, try to find your ways to opt out of things you don't agree with all you want, but you can't tell other people who choose to opt into these things that they're not allowed to do that. And I mean, philosophically speaking, that's kind of a double-edged sword. That it's not going to be the exact kind of anarchist utopia in the future, I think, that a lot of people in this space expect. Because at the end of the day, there are going to be people who want to opt into the kinds of things we have now. And philosophically speaking, if you argue from a libertarian or voluntarist point of view, you can't really argue against people who choose to do that, because that's their right to do that.
I don't think there's a ton of anarchists that are against contracts, right? So if what you're saying is that, you know, by signing up to be part of the CME, they agreed to certain rules, I don't, you know, that's totally legitimate. I think the thing that I hear people saying is, oh, the anarchists like myself are saying, oh, they hope the SEC gets involved now. And I do, because that's all we've got, right? I mean, I would definitely prefer a better justice system. No anarchists are arguing that we shouldn't have a justice system. We're just arguing that the existing one is only right when it's right accidentally, and that we need to do a lot better. But we'll take what we can get.
Mm-hmm.
Well, my stand, like when I criticize things like the BAT token or ICOs or all that, I'm not coming from a position that I actually want to see the SEC come after them. I'm coming from a position of, these are public facts. The SEC is bound to, or someone working for the SEC or someone who has contacts at the SEC is going to find them eventually. I'm going to make you scared as possible right now, so that you fix it or you get out early so that they don't come after you or they can't come after you. So if my criticism sounds like I'm calling for regulation, I would actually say, no, I'm trying to help you get out. And if you don't listen to me, then I can't help you because they will come after you and I can't save you.
Exactly. You're trying to give people the kind of tools to acknowledge reality instead of dig their head in the sand.
Yeah.
Yeah, and we don't need new regulation anyway. Like there's every one of us is committing like 5 or 6 felonies a day. All they have to do is decide to enforce on anybody. So there's no need to add additional regulations. If they, you know, they can be arrested for fraud, which is just making deceptive claim or deceiving people into buying stuff, right? It could be as simple as that, and those guys could go down for all the nonsense they did with Bcash. It doesn't have to be anything more subtle like insider trading that could be debated. You know, they just flat out deceived their customers into buying crap.
And
yeah, I think actually
sorry, go ahead, Janine.
Well, I think actually the first issue with regards to Coinbase and the CME is the fact that they even listed Bitcoin Cash as a conflict of interest, because they listed a competing product. So actually, there doesn't even have to be any insider trading or market manipulation or whatever. Just the fact that they added it very non-publicly, like it was a secret and they didn't publicize ahead of time that they were going to add it, like that fact in itself could get them in trouble with the CME.
Yeah, and like, you know, I was just like I was going to say real quick, I want to be clear. I'm not saying like I want the SEC in a government suit with the orders of like a citation to take you to a court. I want the regulators to show up. CME's regulators, whoever they are, that's a badass with muscle at Brian Armstrong's house, pushing his arm behind his back, getting him to do what's right. Like, I mean, I don't know, the regulators, I mean, the SEC, I mean, like they've got lots like laws that they could say, you know, hey, you violated this or that. I mean, the reality is I just want some strong man to get there and say, you know, you need to do what's right for your customers. You can't just keep screwing over the majority of people in the United States that are using you as an exchange. I mean, it's just, it's gotten to that point to where it's too ridiculous for it to just go unnoticed and unchecked. We're way too up here in the sky. We got too much light on us. This is too important. It's for guys like this to just be screwing with it and get away with it. I mean, like, yeah, I don't necessarily want to see him go to jail as much as I just want to see somebody put some pressure on him to where he does the right thing.
Yeah, and I also want to point out that, you know, if you're running a project, you know, with supposedly decentralized cryptocurrencies and the SEC can take you down, like, I think you've overpromised something. Like, the reason the SEC hasn't come after Bitcoin like they're starting to come after these ICOs is because they know they can't take Bitcoin down. That's why. It's not like they wouldn't want to. I'm pretty sure some people at the SEC want to, but they can't. If they can take down your ICO, I'm not really interested in it, to be honest.
I mean, regulatorily speaking, like that's actually one of the things I'm most interested to see kind of going into the next year. Like as the SEC gets a lot stricter about applying securities laws and regulations and trying to weed out the ICOs. Like, one, how many people are going to be ballsy enough to just go, fuck you, we're going to do it anyway? And two, how much of the market of investors would still display demand for products like that if they were effectively just openly illegal ignoring these laws and regulations?
Would brave be brave?
Yeah. But I think we've kind of been fucking ragging on Coinbase though for a good chunk of time now.
They're Coinbase though. You got to keep calling them that for a while.
Yes,
until Brian's gone.
Coinbase. But one positive piece of news, I guess. Elizabeth Stark made an appearance on the Bloomberg network to discuss Lightning Network, which, in my opinion, was something sorely needed with the web of shadiness between Roger Ver and CNBC and the very one-sided nature of coverage over the past few weeks. But it's actually pretty well received from everything I saw. And it's a nice kind of layman, simplistic breakdown of things. But, you know, hopefully this is something we can start seeing more of, like actual people who know what the hell they're talking about as guests on the mainstream media, instead of people like Roger pretty much playing CIA man, running around making backdoor connections with people in media organizations and pushing bullshit.
Roger, a state actor? No. He's certainly out there like the biggest Bcash holder there is. But you know, it's good to, yeah, like you're saying, get some people on there that are technically competent to discuss this tech, because otherwise it just sounds like, I don't know, boiler room degen crap.
I also think it would be cool. I think it would be cool to point out the fact that Jack Mallers, who was on the last episode of Block Digest, his app was actually featured in that segment with Elizabeth Stark in the background. It was that few seconds that you saw where there was, you know, a Bitcoin like app that was buying coffee. Apparently it's not actual coffee, which I'm not that disappointed in because I don't need to buy coffee because I don't drink it. But apparently it's not real coffee. It's just a test app to show you how fast the Lightning transactions get confirmed. But if you want to buy real coffee, you could probably do that. It's just not there yet because you have to find someone willing to take Lightning transactions. But I thought that was cool. We had one of our guests was also featured on Bloomberg.
Yeah, that's awesome.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, everybody out there who hasn't done it yet. I mean, I know there's kind of been some issues with the LND client proper on the desktop if you're not very technically versed. But I mean, the Zap wallet from Jack is out there to test. The Eclair wallet is available on Android, I know for sure. And there's a few different wallets out there you can test right now just to see how it's functioning on testnet. And I mean, I've been playing with the Eclair wallet just when I'm bored for the past few days, and I have had a single transaction so far that was not confirmed in the literal snap of a finger, and it only took 3 seconds. And I mean, that's out of probably a few hundred test transactions I've made so far. It is looking very nice and functional as far as what's available on the testnet right now, and very sleek and easy to use.
Yeah, and technically it's brilliant. I mean, it's if you are a technical guy, if you know how TCP/IP works, or if you've written some software, you can read that white paper and you're going to get it. And one of the things I like that Jack said last time is, don't buy now. Wait until we have it fully deployed and it's tested and everybody's using it. Nobody in the market's confused about how Bitcoin's going to scale, and then buy, because we don't want to see you buying until it's at least $100,000 of Bitcoin.
Yeah, I gotta get that Eclair or the Zap wallet and just figure, fool around with it. I've been fooling around with that Samurai wallet for a while now, and I've liked that wallet. And so, yeah, I don't know. I need to get that wallet and start fooling around with it, because these lightning channels and lightning transactions are the future. So might as well start fiddling with it.
And also remember, guys, if you want to get Bitcoin, you can buy a fraction of it. You don't have to buy a whole Bitcoin, because apparently we have a lot of noobs coming in who think, oh, you have to buy a whole Bitcoin. You can't divide it into, what is it, 1 million Satoshi or
100 million?
Yeah, I think it's 1 million. 100 million Satoshis, yes. Don't be stupid and look at Litecoin or Dash or IOTA or something like that and think, oh, I should buy that because it's cheaper. No, it's not. It's not cheaper in that sense. You can buy any amount of Bitcoin you want, and it will work. You don't have to buy a whole one.
I can't wait until the exchanges start listing bits or some smaller amount and the price of Bitcoin just shoots through the roof. It's going to be that's going to be a change where we're going to know how much dumb money is in the system when you just change the denomination and it goes up by 30% in 2 days.
Mm-hmm. And it's going to be that knowing OG nod when you hear somebody talk about the price in terms of BTC instead of bits or something, just hey, brother.
Yeah, I just went through that myself. It's you look at those ratios with BTC, and it's oh man, this isn't the move I wanted. And yeah, it just makes sense to hold Bitcoin.
There's literally a t-shirt saying you can buy a fraction of a Bitcoin, and it's sold by Crypto Graffiti. There's also an awesome t-shirt that I found recently that says money grows on Merkle trees, which I recommend as a Christmas gift.
Yeah, that's one, it's funny. I don't know. That you've got to buy a whole Bitcoin problem. That really is a hang up. I forgot about it, because now I just sort of see it's I'm just sort of putting money on the network, and, but yeah. Yeah, you could definitely buy less than 1 Bitcoin, people.
Because the consequence of that is that people sign on to an exchange or something, or they just, they look at the television and they're talking about Bitcoin and they see $17,000 or $12,000 or $20,000 and they think, oh, now it's only for rich people. I can't get it. No, you can put any amount that you're comfortable with into Bitcoin at any time. And obviously the price of Bitcoin will fluctuate. So depending on how volatile it is when you buy it, it might go up and down, but you can put in any amount of money that you feel comfortable losing. You should always do that. You should always assume that the price is going to go down at least a significant amount, like we saw in the past day with 50% correction. You should always assume that you're going to lose at least a large portion of what you put into Bitcoin. and you can put in any amount you want. So if you're not comfortable losing $100, then put in 50. Put in, well, probably $5 would not be good right now unless you're using SegWit addresses. But you can put in any amount of money you want.
Yeah, I mean, like I literally started with just like $10, I think, just fiddling around with very small amounts, and just to where I got confident with the wallets and sending it back and forth. And yeah, it's I would recommend, if you're, especially if you're a first time buyer, don't just go buy a bunch of Bitcoin and you don't know where to store it and you don't know what you're doing. Buy a little bit, move it around, send it around, understand how fees work, understand it might take time to move these transactions, and then as you get proficient and you become more knowledgeable of the system and more secure with your ability to use that system, then you can start adding more to that because you feel confident in the system.
I actually started off in Bitcoin. My first Bitcoin was 5 cents because I was using a faucet. So I didn't even start off with $5. I started off with 5 cents.
It's nice.
Totally, and it's not like it's not like Bitcoin's expensive yet, because Bitcoin is an experiment to replace money, right? It's an experiment to see if we can create a global money that's not controlled by any government. And if it works, it's going to have to be $5 million plus a Bitcoin, right? I mean, it's going to have to be astronomically huge compared to what it is right now. So you don't have to feel like you got to drop 20 grand, right? Because if it's successful, you're going to have an incredible return. And if it's not successful, it's going to zero. So just put in what seems reasonable under those circumstances. And whatever you do, don't put in so much that you have to have it go up from here, because we don't know what it's going to do. Like, we know it shouldn't be zero, or we know that zero is a viable number, and maybe 5 million is a viable number, right? And it's in between those two things. If it's a new global money, it's got to be 5 million plus. And if it's nothing, if it's not a global money, then it's failed and it'll go to zero. But the fact that we're in between those two numbers, and like drastically in between, shows that the whole market and the whole world is learning about how Bitcoin works. And we're experimenting to figure out if it's going to work. A lot of the technical people are pretty confident it's going to work, but it doesn't mean that there's not going to be, something that we didn't think of. Like, stuff breaks all the time in the software world. So, don't feel like you have to go totally all in, and don't feel like what it's going to do in the next 90 days. Because if you do, you're way smarter than anybody else that's been in the space for, way a long time. And that's not likely.
Yeah, I stay away from trying to call cops in the bottoms.
Yeah, and I want to point out, we were having a discussion yesterday in the Mumble because I discovered the term micro-influencer, because now it's not enough to call yourself an influencer. If you're someone who has social media connections that are only above average, like you're not quite an influencer yet, you can now call yourself a micro-influencer. So I just want to remind everyone, this is not investment advice. It's anti-investment advice. But if it was investment advice, it would be micro investment advice.
Oh shit, guys. I just walked under a ladder and tripped over my black cat and broke the mirror on the wall. Bitcoin's gonna die. Oh shit. Oh shit.
Oh man, don't listen to us. We're not gonna get you any money other than maybe a little bit of Bitcoin.
But
kind of make the momentum traders, right? They're not even smart enough to go, oh, I just I stepped on a black cat. They're just like, well, it went up yesterday, it's going to go up today.
Yeah, I don't know. I honestly don't know what to make of a lot of traders in this space. I use a very simple tool set and would definitely not call myself proficient in it. I just kind of see what happens. But all right, another bad segue courtesy of Shinobi Monkey. But Coinbase sprung a surprise on us that wasn't really a nice surprise this week. Here's a nice surprise. GMO, the Japanese company that was going to jump into mining and start opening up mining farms and producing ASICs next year, they have a farm open already. Surprise. They got it done before the end of the year. They have opened it up in an undisclosed northern European country, mostly powered off of renewable energy. But one of the interesting things here, if I can poorly find this in here, they are working with an unnamed alliance partner who possesses semiconductor design technology to develop their ASICs. So I have a guess as to who this partner might be. Does anybody else have a guess they'd like to wager?
I was thinking it could be BTC Drac, but I don't know.
Well, you know, every time I see their company name, I think of genetically modified organisms, so I'm going to guess Monsanto.
No.
Monsanto is moving into the mining business.
But yeah, in all seriousness, I would wager a bet that this is Dragonman. Because if you remember, part of their entire rationale was to get this initial production run being done now. You can get the miners shipped out to the people who pre-ordered early next year. And then potentially open source the designs to allow other companies to start entering the space. And, you know, I'm pretty sure Jihan, if this company was dealing with Bitmain, would be shouting that from the rooftops to try to FUD and create the picture of his ironclad monopoly that's not going anywhere. And yeah, I don't see those statements anywhere.
No, I think that this is just great. Yeah, like you know, them working with an unnamed alliance member. You know, like I think that you could be right. That because you're right. He did want to open source that, and I mean the timing kind of lines up as far as the first quarter of 2018, and I just like what I noticed in this article that I thought was good just to see them kind of reiterate that they are still working on like those mining boards for home computers and like yeah, and you know, definitely throw Jahan off his game and you know, get this mining decentralization really happen. And yeah, I'm sure they're doing good, you know, they probably in some cold climate with some renewable energy. And you know, I mean, mining is a profitable business if you could do it correctly. And you know, I mean, GMO is a big conglomerate of internet companies. I don't think that they're just going in this, you know, without the right numbers behind it to be doing it profitably. So I think that, yeah, this is going to be awesome to see that, like, you know, to go ahead and see them kicking it off before 2018. That's great. So yeah, 2018 is going to be a great year all around. Lightning, decentralized mining, decentralized exchanges. Yeah, lots of bullish activity for 2018. It's just, you know, we're getting there.
Speaking of Jihan Wu, Shinobi, do you want to tell us what you plan to do with that staggeringly weird conversation we had yesterday with a possible Bitmain/BTC.com employee?
Yeah. Well, I guess now is as good a time as any to mention. We're probably not going to be doing a show on Saturday or Sunday just because of the holidays. But we do have a few Easter eggs and surprises to give you in lieu of that. One of which is a discussion that we had with a Bcash supporter in the Mumble server the other day. And I feel really awkward, even like just thinking that I'm going to be publishing this later. But I do have to take solace in the fact that it was recorded at his request. That this was not some kind of gotcha. We just started recording or recorded him without him knowing. He literally requested that the discussion we had was recorded and published publicly. And yeah, I feel really awkward and really bad for this guy because I don't think he knows his head from his ass or how anything in this space actually functions or what is going on. And if this individual that we talked with is any kind of indicator of your average Bcash supporter, I just feel so bad for these people, because they have just been suckered into supporting a pump and dump scam by a bunch of sociopaths, and they just have no idea what's going on. Like they're literally defending these people who are actively defrauding them, and it's not going to end well for these people. And I'm sure that a lot of people will probably laugh their asses off listening to it. I'm sure a lot of people will probably shut it off and think it's a waste of time. And I'm sure a lot of people who stick through and listen to it will probably feel as awkward as I do. But this is going to be something we're publishing over the next day or two, and I guess you can make of it what you're going to make of it.
I mean, like, I don't know how bad it's going to be. I wasn't there for that particular discussion, but if it's anything like the shouting echo chamber of RBTC, I can imagine. And yeah, it's probably not going to be too pretty.
It wasn't quite that. I mean, it was mostly Mr. Hoddle. Mr. Hoddle kind of talked at the top of his voice on a number of occasions, and then a couple of other people were asking him questions that he couldn't really answer. He was coming back with, the usual predictable conspiracy theories, like about how Lightning Labs is actually Blockstream It's a Blockstream Lightning hub, guys. So not only does Blockstream run Lightning Labs, Lightning has hubs. As we know, it does not have hubs, as another conspiracy theory. And then there was other moments where because my style of journalism, or at least my way of correcting people, is to ask them questions and then see what their answer is, and then just keep asking them questions. And they usually are a lot more responsive to that, because I'm not accusing them of anything or raising my voice. I'm just asking them questions, and when I can ask them a question and then give them an answer, then I can kind of see what the response is. And his responses was generally a lot of silence and confusion. And I thought that was quite interesting. So maybe he'll consider some of the points that all the people in the mumble made. Because it did sound that way towards the end, except for the part where, he was saying, because we actually asked him, like, how do you think you did, over the course of this, quasi interview? And he's like, I think I did really good. And you guys look like a bunch of suckers. And I don't know. I don't know if I can necessarily say that I'm looking forward to everyone hearing it. It was definitely hilarious to listen to at the beginning. I mean, because if it was just a random person, I'd be like, what would be the point of this? And that's what I was saying to Shinobi at the beginning. It's like, I don't really see what the worth is in recording this guy. And then we found out, because someone in the mumble chat, Duringo, actually found his Twitter profile, and he had a picture of Bitmain warehouses in his header picture. And I was like, does that mean he works for Bitmain? And so I asked him, do you work for Bitmain? He's like, I think his answer was something along the lines of he does a little bit of work for them. He mostly, he works on like the wallets or something for BTC.com. And that was very interesting to find out, because that means he's not just a random supporter. He's actually someone who's involved, like building stuff for them. And so that made his perspective all the more worthwhile to listen to, because it's very reflective of people that are involved with Bitcoin Cash.
I've got to hear this now. I didn't know it was with Hodl. I'm sure he's getting upset in that one.
Yeah, he got a little heated at some points, but we all tried to kind of keep it civil in tone, and I mean his frustration was totally understandable. I mean, we've kind of been dealing with this nonsense from all directions for years.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, I think large portions of it will probably be unintelligible, because it's just Mr. Hoddle and I think his name was Olajid or something. I don't remember how to pronounce it, but they were basically yelling back and forth at each other. So a lot of it you will not be able to understand. But the parts that you can, I think, are okay to listen to.
Yeah,
that sounds like it's going to be fun content.
I'm looking forward to it. I think if you've ever tried to talk somebody out of being part of a cult, I haven't heard it. I don't know, but the way you guys are describing it sounds a lot like that.
Oh yeah. I don't know if I want to spoil it, but let's just say he was very willing to praise Jihan Wu and the great effort he has made for the blockchain and all that.
Yeah, the sun as it rises, and Craig Wright is at his right hand, and yeah, I can already like hear the religious overtones.
Surprisingly enough, he said he was not a fan of Craig Wright, which I'm pretty sure is a sin that he will get punished for very soon. At this very moment, he is probably getting punished.
He's chanting something and moving beads in his hands as we speak for that slander against the prophet CSW.
Oh man, yeah, especially when that thing gets released. Yeah.
All right, trademark Shinobi segue. I nailed it. Nailed it. All right. Goldman Sachs is going to set up a cryptocurrency trading desk and try to start market making. Like this is just like, I am just waiting to hear JP Morgan say they're going to do it too. Or like try to leapfrog and be like, we're working on integrating Bitcoin deposits for bank account holders and other customers. Or it's like all of the financial institutions, the stock exchanges looking into this, all the other banks starting to dip their toes and stuff. I mean, the futures contracts, like Goldman Sachs here, literally talking about market making. This is happening. Like they're starting to just cave. Like this is happening. We can't stop this. We just have to roll with it and try to figure it out somehow. And it's so hilarious the way that you know you've got all these other institutions like Goldman Sachs here that are just going for it. But JP Morgan kind of painted themselves into a corner with Jamie Dimon. Just it's a Ponzi scheme. It's a bubble. And it's just like he's painted himself into that corner where all of his other competitors are starting to move towards the cash cow right now, and he's kind of made it impossible for him to do that without taking a huge reputational hit and pretty much just eat shit and acknowledge he was dead wrong. But I mean, like a lot of people are probably going, oh my God, a bank getting into Bitcoin, but something as large as Goldman Sachs getting involved in market making, that's the kind of shit that's going to actually, one, accelerate the price upwards, and two, start building up levels of liquidity that will actually provide the kind of stability needed to start trying to really use this as a means of transacting or trading with people for actual products in the markets. Like this is how we get to actually being used widely as a currency, because we need that stability.
Yeah.
Although, just to clarify, that doesn't stop them from being the same bunch of scumbags that caused the financial crisis and are the reason Bitcoin exists in the first place, to get away from them.
Yeah, but now I guess they can start atoning for it.
Yeah.
Oh, they're gonna have to do a lot of atonement before they ever make up for what they did. At least in my books.
Well, yeah. I mean, yeah, that's something where it's unfortunate that these guys, I mean, it's like the way of the world where it's like, these new systems come on, the people that are in the right spots are going to be there to get in first. And yeah, that part's unfortunate. I mean, like, it is fortunate though to see, that their customers are coming to them and saying, why the hell aren't you dealing with Bitcoin? Because we want Bitcoin and, we need to get in this. And so they're responding to it. And, it's not exactly like all these other future products. I know that some of their investors turned away because they said that, they're asking some of their clients to set aside funds equal to the full value of their trade, which I guess that, is a little too much for some people. And yeah, it's it's one of these, like, I mean, once it comes on, we start to get more light on the situation, more people in Bitcoin, and it just becomes more of a system that is going to be used by the masses. It's getting adopted by the masses, and you're going to see these people that are in charge of the masses currently stepping in, most likely before the average customer. And I don't know. I think it's a good thing that they're offering it to their customers. It's a good thing their customers are coming to them, but it is kind of unfortunate that that's the way things play in society in general, really.
Yeah, it's going to take time to transition from the old system to the new system. I mean, in the United States, most people have, if they have any substantial savings, it's tied up in a 401k, and they're not able to take that money and put it into Bitcoin. And it's so bad right now that a lot of people have bought stock, use their 401k to buy stock in a company, and they have to pay, like, I think about 2 times what the Bitcoin value is that the company holds. So they're willing to do that because it's their only option, right? If they take it out of their 401k, they get early withdrawal fees. So stuff like the ETFs and the commodities futures and all that stuff, it's kind of it's a necessary evil, right? We have to have those on ramps into Bitcoin. But what's really sweet about Bitcoin is that once you have your money in Bitcoin and you see it and you get interested and you go, oh, wait a minute, I'm paying 1.5% per year management fee for these jackasses to hold my Bitcoin and maybe lose them on occasion. But if I just buy this $150 hardware wallet, I have complete control. So, the competition is going to be stiff for being able to hold people's Bitcoin. The premiums that you're going to be able to charge are going to drop like those guys have never seen before.
Cold card plug. It's going to be $50 hardware wallet this year.
Even better. I mean, the competition is even hot on that side, where it's nothing compared to it's not unheard of to pay 2-3% fees, right? Like you put your money into the hands of a financial planner. They do better than random chance very rarely, right? Like if you just literally threw like darts at a board and picked your stock tickers that way, or you just bought just a random mutual fund, chances are you do better than most of these financial planners. And it's not uncommon for them to charge 2 or 3%, and that's not of the money that they make you. That's the money that they hold for you. So they can hold $100,000 of yours. It can go down to $85,000, and that year they still get to pocket $3,000 or $2,000 of your money. So they're going to have a really hard time with that kind of a business model once people realize just how easy and more secure it is to hold their own Bitcoin. But they've got to go through these phases, right? People have got to get on ramped. So it's all good. And it's the beginning of the end for those guys. Let them embrace it. It's their own destruction.
Right. They're just I'm sorry. I was just going to say, they're going to see how long they can hold your keys before you finally realize, like, oh, wait, I can control my own Bitcoin. Yes, you can.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know about the rest of you, but like I've never been disappointed with the hardware wallets. Like it's such a great feeling to not only know that you're controlling your keys, but the interfaces have been really amazing. I consider, like, from the limited amount that I've seen of exchanges, like the hardware wallet interfaces that they've made are usually okay. Apparently Ledgers is really bad. I actually haven't used I haven't used Ledger since they decided to put Intel SGX in it, and also because I believe it was the CTO, he was a real dick to me about that, so I'm not buying Ledgers anymore. Sorry, but Trezor, the Trezor interface is really good. I've always liked it. It's like if the complaint is UX, or UI, I'm willing to help people out with that if the interface is too confusing. But I find at least Trezors to be really easy to follow.
It's a hell of a lot easier than Coinbase, where you have to type in the amount manually. Because I was using Coinbase, I will admit, until a week ago for really small transactions. Just like onboard new users, that sort of stuff. And that's a freaking nightmare. Like you can't just scan a QR code and send that amount. You have to like look at the amount that you're trying to send and type it in manually, and then only then does the QR code scanner come up. So the hardware wallets are definitely better than that.
One thing though, I do want to say that infuriates me with hardware wallets is how they do not allow users to actually manually select outputs, because this one,
yes, I definitely agree with that. Yeah,
it gives you a lot finer control over the fees you'll be paying and a better understanding for why the fees are what they are. And two, like, you can't really maintain your privacy on the blockchain if your wallet doesn't let you select the outputs and it's just randomly tangling all of your outputs together on the blockchain, showing that a single person controls all of them. And that's kind of why I went grr with Ledger, because like a month or so ago, I tagged KeepKey, Trezor, and Ledger, and kind of was like, you guys should do this as somebody that a lot of noobs use, and got no response. And so I got really infuriated with Ledger the other day, finally going to manage my Bitcoin Gold and not having the ability to prevent all of my outputs from being tangled together. And so I kind of more angrily went, you're pretty much spitting in the face of your users' privacy if you don't offer this option. And BTC Chip pretty much got incredibly defensive and pretty much told me to do it. This private company that is selling a product for a profit effectively told me to make their product better for them. And like, this space overall being open source is something I am very much aligned with, but they're a private company selling a product for a profit. Like, it is not the same as being a project that is just something people are working on for free and being like, well, hey, chip in and contribute. Like, you're building a product. It's your job to refine and optimize that. And like, it's their UI has been so simplistic and lacking options since I got my first Ledger, like more than a year or two ago. And despite the fact that Trezor still doesn't give you output control, they have the ability to use CLVT. They have the ability to use op return. They are actually packing in as many of these full features as they can into their user interface instead of just keeping the same hacky thing that's not adding access to any features for years. And like, that's something that these kinds of products need to do. They need to get all of the features of Bitcoin to the point where a layman can very easily use them. Otherwise, they're effectively limiting what most people will be able to use Bitcoin for.
That's true. I don't disagree. I think, but in the context of something like Coinbase, like, grab any random hardware wallet. Like, I don't care if you've ever even heard of it before, and you're going to be more secure than using Coinbase. So no, you're totally right. There's privacy issues with how you manage your keys, and all of your criticism is totally valid. But in the context of what we've seen in the last few days, it's almost insignificant.
Yeah, I want to point out really quickly. So Shinobi, you and I have both interacted with the same Dick CTO. His name is Nicholas Baca. If you want to show his profile page on the Ledger website, that's who BTC Chip is. So this is the guy who, if you want to make any kinds of requests like that, don't interact with him because he's probably not going to listen to you. In terms of Trezor, I think actually a year ago, Chris and I asked Trezor why they didn't allow you to choose which outputs or which addresses to send from. And Trezor, well, we didn't specifically ask Trezor. I think we asked, I think it's Elena Satoshi. I don't remember her last name. She goes by Elena Satoshi on Twitter, and she works with Satoshi Labs. And she said that the reason they haven't done it is because they consider that to be an advanced feature, which I guess I would agree with. Like, most users probably wouldn't be looking for that. But personally, I think it's definitely something they should look into, because that's like at the top of the list for me. Every time I use any kind of wallet, I get frustrated when I'm not able to choose which outputs I send from. So that's really important to think of in terms of the roadmap.
See, like, I can appreciate like an argument based on prioritizing which features to give users, but like, honestly, I don't mean to shit on Elena. I love her, but that's a bullshit argument, whether it's coming from her or Ledger or KeepKey or whatever. I mean, it's effectively a list that it's like each thing is a different coin the more coins you put in a transaction, the more expensive it is, and they each have a denomination. I mean, I really think trying to argue that that's too complex for people is bullshit. Because if they're able to be here and understand how things work right now on a simplistic level, if they're not grandma or grandpa that have their grandkids managing everything for them, I mean, when you really boil it down, it's a list of numbers. And to say that that's too complex for most people to deal with, I think is kind of ridiculous.
Well, I always say it's too complex for most people to deal with, but most people are going to want to just have the simplest flow possible, and they wouldn't understand the importance of being able to select a specific UTXO, right? They're not even aware of the privacy implications. So just to kind of, I don't know, put it in context a little bit, I don't know what these guys have as far as a roadmap goes, right? I mean, is their number one priority just dropping the cost by $5? Maybe that's what they should be focused on. I'm not 100% sure. And when it comes to what another company's doing, even if they have an asshole interface, I do tend to, I mean, you wouldn't know it from probably my Twitter feed for the last few days, but I do tend to give companies like a huge benefit of the doubt because it's fucking hard. It is so hard to run a company and keep all the employees paid and figure out what customers want. You pretty much have to like try to set my front lawn on fire before I hate you, right? And that's what Coinbase has done. That's what everybody involved in the New York agreement has done. They literally tried to come after the thing that we all love, which is Bitcoin, and stuff a security hole in it that would make it useless. So, that's kind of my overall perspective. I'm not saying your complaints aren't valid, but gosh, in context of the assholes that are really trying to destroy us, I think we just need a little bit more competition in the hardware space. I think Open Dime is cool. I think we're going to get more of it.
But like by the same token, like a company like Coinbase or Ledger or KeepKey or Trezor, they chose to put themselves in a situation where their market niche is to get all of the noobs and all of the Luddites and teach them how to interact with this ecosystem to make it something they can accomplish. And like if users don't understand those things, well, hey, here's your opportunity to teach them something about the system that you are trying to incentivize them and give them tools to interact with. So I mean, like that's like I still think it's I get your argument, but I still think it's copping out essentially.
Yeah, I would push back on what you just said a little bit. I don't view Coinbase's role as someone who wants to actually teach people about this stuff, because actually it seems to me like they're doing the opposite. They want to make it so apparently easy to use that people don't have to learn about how it works. As we've observed with many new users recently. The reason they go to Coinbase is because they don't really know any other way, and supposedly these exchanges make it so easy for them because they act as both an exchange and a wallet at the same time, and most people don't know how much of a hazard that is. Yeah. So I wouldn't say that their role is to teach necessarily.
Like CoinKite is coming out, and I know that Rodolfo is really into all these little things that we're talking about. I'm not 100% if this feature is going to be in there, but I'm thinking like this is kind of like altcoins. It's like there's like certain levels of decentralization and development and community, and it's like like somebody who is like an older person who doesn't really want anything else other than storage, like maybe the cheap, however they know that their Bitcoin is secure and that's all they're really going for. Where you could go to CoinKite if you're like, I want to make sure that my transaction goes to the output that I'm selecting, or these little features that, I mean, like, I understand. I feel like maybe these things should be default in these wallets, but like JW saying, as far as running a company that's trying to maintain profitability and employees and all this stuff, I could see them saying like, well, our customers aren't necessarily worried about their identity. Our customers are more worried about how they're going to secure their Bitcoin and how expensive our wallet is. And so that's our two main directives. And where somebody like CoinKite, they say, hey, you know, our main directive is we want a cheap hardware wallet that somebody has the most tools available for them. And yeah, I think we're going to just start seeing these markets, you know, it's like some people go on a Ledger because they need it like that. Trezor seems to be like the beefiest, like I like the interface too. It seems like it works well. There's backing these small, like these extra features you're discussing, and maybe, you know, you go to something like CoinKite if you want all the features that are available to you. So yeah, I mean, like as time goes on, I think we're going to just start seeing basically just different markets of hardware wallets. Like, I mean, can we even really define what OpenDime is? Like, it's not necessarily cold storage. I mean, it is a hardware wallet. It's something like in between. And yeah, these things aren't fully fleshed out yet.
Well, I mean, the main difference between like an OpenDime hardware wallet and a Trezor is that to do a transaction with Trezor, I mean, you're basically you have to do an on-chain transaction at the moment whenever you send money. Whereas with OpenDime, that's for the purpose of off-chain transactions that still maintain the same amount of security, or at least a very high amount of that security, not completely, obviously, because the most secure transactions would be the ones that are actually on-chain. But yeah, open dimes are specifically meant for off-chain transactions.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. It's like the space is evolving, and we're figuring out what these hardware wallets, like, you know, where they fall for their customers. Like, I mean, some people are really, you know, they want to make sure that their identity is not being compromised, and so they won't go to Ledger.
And hopefully, you know, the protocol's evolving, right? So Lightning is going to help a lot with that. And especially if we have Lightning that's getting routed, you know, or in combination with the mixers that, you know, that have, gosh, what's the name of the mixer that they just did a test?
Zerolink.
Yeah, exactly. So I mean, I'm on all of those fronts. I'm super optimistic, and I don't want to get too frustrated with folks that are trying to actually build something, even if they're not great at it. It's the folks that are trying to destroy something that really get under my skin.
Yeah, that's fair. But all right, I'm going to just keep words are not working for me right now. Griping, if we don't move along. So we're going to show something. Everybody who hasn't watched this yet, Magical Crypto Friends. This is going to be a new monthly YouTube show with Charlie Lee, Ricardo Spegni, Samson Mao, and Whale Panda. And if you guys haven't seen it yet, holy shit, is the intro to this show a fucking treat. And, you know, we're all really grateful to like everybody who watches us and other shows like this with you know, people who've been in the space as users for years. But I think it's going to be a nice treat to, you know, once a month be able to hear things directly from the horse's mouth instead of just kind of hearing, you know, dedicated users giving our opinions and assessments of things. Yeah. Kind of have that whole spectrum filled in.
Yeah,
I don't want to ruin the plot, but does Charlie Lee steal a lot of stuff?
Oh, come on, JW.
Does he? Is he the guy that runs around and tricks people into buying bullshit?
Oh shit, man! No, this looks.
You mean like a chicken with its head cut off?
Oh man, no.
They rag on him with Litecoin in there, JW, and he takes it like a champ. I think you'll find that entertaining if you haven't watched it already.
No, I gotta say, Charlie Lee is a funny son of a bitch, but he's good. Like he's not the Roger Vercon man. He's the guy that I would give money to, right? He's the guy that would get me.
Well, what I like about it is that, like, for several weeks, they were all changing their avatars on Twitter, and I was like, what is going on? Why are you changing your pictures to cartoony-ish animals? And then And then I saw the Twitter account and I was like, oh, I see where this is going now. And yeah, you guys have to watch the intro, obviously, but the intro is amazing. It's like this whole animated sequence. Like it when you open it, when you first start the video, it's like, did I just turn on the channel to like My Little Pony or something? They definitely have the advantage. I will give them credit. They have the advantage that each of them is associated with an animal, and that makes for very good marketing material because then you can make it look very childlike and friendly and inviting. And they each have this, persona that's an animal. It's very easy to play on. So definitely give them credit for that. I did watch. I only got to watch a portion of the first episode. And unfortunately, it was a bit outdated because it was from right after UTXO. It's from over a month ago, so it's a little old now. I assume that be more up to date, but it was definitely, the intro was, I could tell that they put a bit of effort into at least the intro, so it should be worth checking out.
I demand cartoon sketches in addition to the intro and the live action parts. I demand them. If they do not arrive, I will boycott every person involved in that show. Give me my damn cartoons.
Yeah, we could open source those animations too. I think this is great. I saw Charlie Lee tweet a while back about putting this podcast together. So it was funny to see it come together like that. I totally didn't guess they were going to do something where it was so, I don't know. It does seem kind of like a pilot for a kids program. It's got the animation thing. I hadn't seen it yet. I hadn't listened to it yet. I'm sure it's not a kids program, but it's definitely it could grab the interest of some kid walking by for sure.
That's why Charlie Lee had to sell all his Litecoin, because the production quality on that thing is just through the roof.
That's what he spent that money on. Okay.
Yeah. My only concern is that I mean, it's a good thing that they each chose to be a different type of animal, because if they weren't, it would be very close to being what I would call affectionately Bitcoin bronies.
All right, I think we're gonna have to do this, guys. Bear with me for the minute to reroute my audio, but I think we have to play this for you guys so you can actually see the intro.
Oh yeah, man.
Yes,
that's definitely worth the wait.
In the meantime, like, what's this beauty bubbles talking about in the chat about aliens in Los Angeles? What is going on? Joke. Is that a joke? I guess there's like a lights in the sky moment like there was in Phoenix going on in Los Angeles right now, where a bunch of people are outside looking at the UFOs.
That is beautiful. The audio, we're not getting the audio, but the imagery is amazing.
Yeah. Oh my God. Of course, it's a badass chicken.
Yeah, get the fork out of Bitcoin's foot.
Wow, this is awesome.
Ethereum, Satoshi's vision.
Ricardo throws the wine at him.
How did Charlie manage to get Litecoin like on the good guy's side? What the heck? This is brilliant. He's so good, man.
Yeah, this is brilliant. Really, these guys. Wow.
Like Litecoin is Bcash 2 years ago, and now it's like it's like always associated with the good guys somehow, to the point where Samson Mao's doing Coast stuff with. So he's brilliant.
It's like you're saying, he's smart. He sells that. Like, I mean, He's got that Bitcoiner's emotion. He knows it, and so he can sell it. And
I predict that there will not be any cartoons that are co-hosted with Bitcoin guys and Bcash guys in 2 years. I think maybe we've grown beyond that now.
Yeah,
the audio didn't come through all the way.
No, but it was still a feast for the eyes. It was great.
Poop.
Okay, guys.
Stupid Google Hangouts.
Well, I think we have to up the production here. If we were to turn all of ourselves into animal personas for a almost kids show for Bitcoin, what would we be? Would you be still a Wookiee JW? Yeah,
Yes.
exactly.
I'd be a sloth.
Well, I'm obviously a monkey.
And
Yeah,
I'm a sloth.
absolutely.
Really slow moving person, sloth.
All right. Janine's the mystery here.
Janine, what would you be?
I honestly don't know. I mean, because like my favorite animals are wolves and horses, but I don't know if that's funny enough.
A wolf, man. A wolf.
An owl. I could do an owl.
An owl, yeah. The smart owl. Yeah.
You could do like the horses that the girl loves on Bob's Burgers. That would be pretty funny.
Oh god. Oh god.
Mr. Goiter.
Yeah, I guess we're gonna have to come up with some hot little animated intro. That'd be pretty funny. But
or there's a Netflix show with a horse that talks like a human. He gets drunk all the time. I can't remember what that's called. It's like an animated thing on Netflix.
Oh no, not Mr. Ed.
Oh, I know this.
Oh.
I know this.
Mr. Ed, I know.
You're failing.
Oh, Jack Horseman.
Yes.
Right?
Yes. That I can be Jack Horseman.
Yes.
Oh, Jack.
Jackie Horseman.
There you go.
Perfect.
Alrighty. Surprise segue. A shitty company in the space is trying to pull a PR move to fix their image. I mean, you got to after this shit with Coinbase. So apparently Blockchain.info has hired Sejor's Provost to be an open source developer under their payroll. And yeah, one thing I don't like about this is this actual statement in their blog post. We want to make sure Sejor's is independent. So we've been clear that he is sponsored for the work and is independent from their main engineering team. Sejor's can work on any protocol that we're currently supporting on our wallet. Everything that he does is open sourced. Okay, now let's wind back to that second one. When Coinbase, I mean, despite the gigantic shit show that they're involved in right now, displaying monumentous incompetence, when they hired an open source developer, it was literally free reign. He could do whatever he wanted, and he chose to work on the Lightning Network. And they were actually trying to hire more developers under that model, where you literally can do anything you want. Why is Blockchain.info trying to pull this nice smooth PR move here and do, air quotes, the same thing, but restrict him to only work on things that are deployed on their wallet? Can't work on SegWit or anything using SegWit. They haven't deployed it. Can't work on Lightning Network. They haven't deployed it. You couldn't work on something like Tumblebit, like a mixer service, CoinJoin, pretty much anything that would actually be useful to the ecosystem at large. He can't work on because Blockchain.info isn't deploying any of it. So I kind of wanted to point this out. And if you see this being bandied around as look, Blockchain.info is contributing, bullshit. This is a sneaky PR move that is absolutely in no way equivalent to the way Coinbase hired the developer that chose to work on the Lightning Network. He's limited to only work on things relevant and already deployed in their product. So in other words, anything that he can work on is not going to provide any value at all to the ecosystem at large. Just Blockchain.info.
So it doesn't really sound like that much of an open source move from blockchain. I don't know. I mean, like open source, the way I feel like, you come in, you work on what you want to work on. And I mean, like, and blockchain.info uses Bitcoin, and SegWit is, that's a Bitcoin that's something that Bitcoin is going to utilize in the future. And so if I would be like, like you're saying, I'd be working on trying to implement SegWit on those wallets. And I don't know, it'd be weird if that's like the case. If you can't do that, then yeah, like you're saying, it just sounds like a PR move. And it's upsetting because when I first read it, I was like, oh, cool, a step in the right direction. But yeah, when you start to read the wording of it, it doesn't necessarily sound like that.
Yeah, I mean, I'll give them a benefit of the doubt that they don't deserve at all, and just say that maybe by protocol that they've implemented, maybe that's just a low-key way of saying, like, don't work on any other coins that we don't support in our wallet. I'm not really sure, because we know that Blockchain.info is not the greatest at using language correctly. UI.
Yeah, I won't give him that benefit of the doubt. I mean, like Drummond just said in the chat, watch him go work on Bcash.
Yeah, well, I don't know that I'm not familiar with the developer they hired. I know he is because I actually added it to because I updated my blog post about the SegWit 2x stuff, and I added him to the fact that blockchain.info sponsored him. I do know he's number 70 on the list of contributors, so he's not like way up there with people like Peter Wool and Peter Todd, but he is. I believe the Bitcoin Core repo has about 460 something contributors, at least that we know of, and so he's number 70. So he's still pretty high up there. But yeah, I wouldn't be surprised if they've already put those kinds of terms and conditions in their sponsorship PR announcement. There probably are some others that we're not aware of, and probably he knows what they are, but they don't want to make that public.
Yeah, if they were part of SegWit 2x, then I wouldn't give them the benefit of the doubt for anything. They're Coinbase.
Yes.
And on that note,
gone.
Peter Smith, the CEO of Blockchain.info, was hugely involved in actually organizing and managing the entire situation, but he very slyly kept himself out of the public eye. Didn't put himself into the spotlight, didn't put his name on any real big announcements or kind of take a leading role in everything. But he was very instrumental in actually organizing and managing that whole agreement. So and for anybody out there who, he was instrumental.
Signed the cancellation email for SegWit 2x, the cancellation email with Mike Belshi and Eric Voorhees and Jihan Wu. He was one of the signatories for that, so he was very involved.
Yep. So he's not going to do anything good. It's very rare that somebody is that malicious and then turns around and does something good, in my experience.
Yeah, and the reason he's doing it is because initially when SegWit 2x got canceled, people were telling him, like, well, now that this has failed, you can get back to working on Bitcoin. Why don't you give money to core developers, or why don't you hire someone and have them work on Bitcoin Core or one of the other implementations? And he said it would be a waste of resources to have someone working at the protocol level, because Core would just... that Core is not interested in on-chain scaling, and so they would block any attempts to. And I was like, "Oh, you are. We're gonna remember this, Peter."
Right.
Yeah. We definitely need to get that. I have a designer working on it right now, the Bitcoin Villains website, because I can't keep track of all these assholes. But we'll have like an IMDb style list of the past attacks instead of films, and link it out to each one of these guys, so we can not get confused about who's tried to screw us in the past.
Mm-hmm. Oh, yeah. And I mean, it's like this hasn't sunk into their heads yet. The internet does not forget shit. Everything gets archived. Everything gets seen. And all it takes is one person out there who's seen it, who has that archive, to just go, hey guys, remember this? And whoa, it's back at the forefront again. Like, bullshit does not get swept under the rug and disappear.
And it was one of the best remember this moments, the fact that Peter Smith tweeted in, I believe it was January 2017, that SegWit was ready to go on blockchain.info web wallets. Where did that go, huh, Peter? It's gone now, apparently.
Yeah.
or it never
What a bastard.
existed.
Yeah, I don't know this Peter Smith, he tries to stay out of the limelight. I mean, we saw that with Barry Silbert too. It's like somebody who's involved but not very vocal about it, trying to avoid the press with it. And yeah, I mean, if you were a part of that and that was your motive was 2x, then yeah, I highly then it's very suspect this like announcement as far as like trying to do something for the advantage of Bitcoin. Yeah, it's real suspect now.
And I also want to point out, just in relation to, this more active involvement by companies to sponsor or contribute development, which apparently Blockchain.info is trying to do in some half-hearted way. There were actually already a significant number of developers who were sponsored by companies that may actually surprise you. For example, Jonas, is it Schnelly? I think that's how you pronounce his name, Jonas Schnelly. He has been sponsored by he and another developer who I don't remember the name of. He is sponsored by Bitmain. Then you have Alex Morkos. He has his own New York-based Chaincone Labs, which supports Matt Corallo, John Newberry, and I think 2 other developers that I can't remember the name of. And then now we have this developer sponsored by Blockchain.info. Peter Todd is funded by BTCC. Or BTC, yeah. Oh my God, too many letters. Eric Lombroso runs his own company. He's the CEO of Cifrex. And then Vladimir Vandelan, who is the core maintainer, he's been supported through the MIT Digital Currency Initiative's Bitcoin Developer Fund, which also used to fund Gavin Andresen before Gavin stopped contributing to Bitcoin Core. So yeah, there's a lot of core developers who are actually sponsored and funded by companies that don't always seem to have aligning motives with core, or at least profess not to. But some of them actually do at least give money to core developers in the background. And at least I'm not aware of the arrangement with a lot of them, but I know at least with Peter Todd, because he posted a blog post about when he started getting money from BTCC, that he also had a very hands-off contract with them. I think even more hands-off than this one with Blockchain.info, where BTCC said that they wouldn't dictate what he was working on. It was just, they were funding core development, and that was it.
That's why I call bullshit with this Blockchain.info agreement, because literally every other company I know of that sponsors work in this way, it's pretty much no strings attached. Like there are no conditions, no limitations on what they can work on. But here we have Peter Smith and Blockchain.info trying to sneakily grab the PR credit, but limit what he can work on to simply Blockchain.info's products. I mean, the whole thing is just, it's a joke. But
sorry about that, man. I was just gonna say, yeah, it's just a joke. I mean, it's ridiculous. But yeah, I accidentally hit a bookmarks button instead.
Uh-oh. Well, who can guess what I'm about to do? Yep, that's right. Throw a new story up on the page here.
Oh my God, there's a gaming token advertisement.
Janine, your brain is the ad blocker. Your brain, you just ignore it.
I let machines do that work for me.
You literally pointed out yesterday that there was a BitConnect ad on one of the pages I showed. I literally didn't even notice it. Like, on no conscious level whatsoever did my brain register that at all.
Well, it's now as immutable as it can be in the YouTube video archives that you had a BitConnect ad, and that BitConnect is following you around the web.
Damn.
BitConnect is bad, okay? But yeah, Brazil is looking to pretty much make Bitcoin illegal without really explicitly making it illegal. I kind of, forgive me while I stumble through the workings of a country I'm not a citizen in. But one committee is proposing a bill right now that it would effectively criminalize using Bitcoin, accepting Bitcoin, using it as an intermediary in anything, or using it as a method of payments or settling obligations. So they're pretty much by the way I read it, it would be illegal to do absolutely anything with Bitcoin except own it or mine it. And now this is just an initial kind of proposal so far. And I believe this would have to go through two different branches of the government and actually be put to a vote in each of them, with the ability to kind of still change the bill or tack things onto it. But like, yeah, this is, I don't know, kind of an odd case to me, because we've seen before, I think countries like Thailand outright made it illegal. My brain might be playing tricks on me, but I believe Vietnam did something similar. But this is like, this is kind of interesting, the way that they're not just blanketly declaring it illegal. They're trying to just make it a criminal offense to actually use it for anything except holding, and giving people no real legal way to acquire it except just being given a gift for absolutely nothing or mining it, by my interpretation of this. And like, that seems like a very oh shit reaction. Like, we know we can't get away with just making it illegal, but we have to stamp it down as hard fisted as we can without just outright declaring it illegal. And with the G20 summit coming up in April, like I was mentioning in the last show, and France calling for all the G20 nations to kind of get together and discuss how to handle regulating Bitcoin, I can see some countries trying to propose things as draconian as this, because if some countries are kind of trying to play this middle ground while stomping it out without actually stomping it out like this radically, I can't imagine that nobody is going to try and propose this at the G20 summit to try and get accomplished on a more international level.
Yeah, that G20 summit's happening like right next door in Argentina. And yeah, it's just, I don't know, it's one of these things where Brazilian politics is not, you know, it's not any easier than the politics here in the US. It's a lot more complicated. It's really, I don't know. I mean, like, I was looking into Brazilian politics and saw that, like, you know, one of their Supreme Court judges right now has got a 1.5 million, you know, signed petitioner, you know, a petition to get him off the bench. And I don't know, it's like an early sort of like, seems like maybe one of those things where somebody in the government mentioned something about it, and it's still just like, yeah, it's the first draft of something that it's got a long way to go before it ever gets passed. But it could be just like some virtue signaling going on for the G20 summit. I'm not sure, but right now, banning Bitcoin is so stupid for a country. It's so stupid.
Totally. The thing that I like about this sort of stuff is that if Brazil tries to do that now, I mean, Goldman Sachs has a relationship with the State Department, right? Like, that's basically the U.S. State Department is basically runs around, and we know this from the WikiLeaks leaks. And they run around and they make inroads for Boeing and all these other companies, right? And they'll do espionage or just flat out threaten people, like they did in Europe. Like, we're going to destroy you if you don't accept GMO from us, right? So so what's funny is it wouldn't be unusual if we ended up in a state pretty soon where the State Department, on behalf of Goldman Sachs and whoever else is investing in Bitcoin in the U.S., is busting heads in Brazil to get this turned back around. So it's going to be interesting to see how this plays out on a global scale soon.
My favorite response to the news about Bitcoin possibly being discussed at G20 was, these people can't even get together and have a conversation or organize regarding reversing climate change. How are they going to get together and ban Bitcoin or agree to ban Bitcoin?
Yeah, that's where it's like the feasibility of it is really just out the window. And like, so it's really like, you're really just hurting your country's economic stability for the future. when you do that, because you're taking Bitcoin out of your country. That's a problem. I mean, it's a stupid move. So I mean, like it sounds like it's like I was saying, like a virtue signal of like, yeah, this G20 is coming around the corner here. My buddy from France is coming. He doesn't like Bitcoin. I'll say this. We'll put through this law. It'll never get passed. It'll be something that'll just come and go. But yeah, if they actually did it, it'd be really stupid.
Yeah, I mean, like I'm going to try to fumble through constructing an analogy on the fly, but kind of the same way that during the Cold War, you had like the world at large functioning as kind of a global capitalist system, and you had these little isolated units of communism that tried to actually function internally as a planned economy, but they still had to compete capitalistically with the rest of the world. And so you had that real, like, between a rock and a hard place dynamic where, like, you know, you're trying to do things like everything's fairly distributed, we're centrally managing everything internally, but as an inherently less efficient way of organizing and using resources, that put them at a disadvantage globally, because externally they were still a capitalistic entity that had to compete in the free market. And Bitcoin in the long term, I think, is going to kind of function in the same way, except kind of somewhat inverse, if you know what I mean, where we kind of have this backdoor planned economy dynamic going on with the way that central banks manage their currencies and economies right now. And you've kind of got that little isolated spot of true capitalism or free market that's kind of just virally spreading and growing. And if you cut yourself off from that, if you try to lock yourself in a clean room and don't let yourself be exposed to that viral growth as a country, at the end you're gonna be the Soviet Union back in the Cold War, the inefficient socialist entity that still has to compete on a market and is going to inherently be less efficient in your competition because of how you manage yourself internally. And it will be a fucking disaster for countries that try to go that route, because they're not going to stop this.
Yeah, I agree. That's why it's stupid.
But I guess you wanna guide me through the screen shares for the WikiLeaks piece, Ginny?
Oh yes, this is a fun one. Because I don't know how many people, I don't know how fresh the news is anymore, because everyone was kind of talking about it last night. But yes, you heard correctly. WikiLeaks has bred their own CryptoKitties, and they are now auctioning them off for money on well, the CryptoKitties platform, and by consequence the Ethereum blockchain. First, I want to give a little background on why I think they're doing this. So a couple of days ago, the Freedom of the Press Foundation, which was actually established, one of their goals was, or functions, was to actually accept donations from U.S. persons on behalf of WikiLeaks, because, as you know, there was a banking blockade very early on in WikiLeaks history. And actually, that was one of the reasons why WikiLeaks was a very, very early adopter of Bitcoin and other cryptocurrencies. They now accept Bitcoin, Litecoin, Monero, Zcash. I don't think they take Ethereum yet, because I think one of the reasons was, if they're going to accept an altcoin, it either has to be like Bitcoin or a privacy coin like Monero, Zcash. I don't think they take Ethereum yet. But, well, now they're taking CryptoKitties, which is technically Ethereum. So yes, they're taking Ethereum in the form of digital cats. So the reason that the reason I think they're doing this is because the Freedom of the Press Foundation recently announced that they will not be taking donations on behalf of WikiLeaks anymore. And they claim that that's the reason they're doing that is because they don't think the banking blockade is in effect anymore. Which, I mean, I haven't fully researched all of their arguments about why they think that, but I don't at this point, I don't fully accept that that's the case, just because, I mean, WikiLeaks hasn't gotten any less controversial recently, so I don't see why banks would be any more willing today to take their donations than they were in 2011 or 2010, but oh well. So WikiLeaks has now become very creative in their campaigning for money. And one of those things is CryptoKitties. So if you go to the actual page, I think we should actually go to it. Because the names for the kitties are very cute. So they started off, their first two cats were Mr. and Mrs. WikiLeaks. As you can see, there's an orange cat and a very sick looking purple spotted creature. My favorite thing about this page, besides the names of the cats, if you scroll down a little bit, there's actually a quote from Julian Assange. And he's called the proud cryptographic kitten owner, which I thought was adorable. And the quote was, cryptography is not only transforming the global financial system, it is generating creative innovation and a vast array of human interaction. WikiLeaks likes cats. I want to point out the reason he probably says that is because he has his own cat in the embassy, the Ecuadorian embassy in London, called Embassy Cat, who he got as a kitten as a present from his children, and is now all grown up to a full-blown cat. WikiLeaks likes cats very much and wants to help bring cryptocurrencies and smart contracts into the mainstream. Donors and crypto kitty enthusiasts can empower WikiLeaks by bidding for one of our cute purebred cryptographic kittens. Newcomers will learn about the blockchain, acquire their very first cryptocurrency, and potentially even make a profit. Ooh, be careful with that one, Julian. You don't want to imply that the kitties are security, right? Yeah, so if you go down further, we have these are the children of the WikiLeaks kitties. We have Trump's tender tabby and Clinton console kitty. Now, console is kind of a bit of wordplay because you think it could mean computer console, but it also means console, as in consolation, as in very sorry for recent events. It's a bit of wordplay. And what's special about these two kitties is that, as you can see, WikiLeaks is planning to gift them. They want to gift them to President Trump, Secretary Hillary Clinton. If you scroll down a little bit, there's a very interesting side note about these. So, according to apparently regulations, I actually looked up which regulation that was. If you open the next link, Shinobi, where it's the law. Yeah, that one. So the regulation, oh, might have to close the donation. So the regulation they cite, if you scroll up a little bit more, it's just because I actually can't read most of that legalese. I was trying to figure it out earlier, but I couldn't. The regulation concerns the receipt and disposition of foreign gifts and decorations. So it's basically what a person very high up in government has to do when they receive gifts on behalf of a foreign country. So I'm assuming that means that the CryptoKitties are being given as a gift officially from Ecuador. I assume that that's what they mean. Or maybe it's kind of a joke because you have all of these intelligence agencies saying that WikiLeaks is a state actor working on behalf of Russia. So maybe it's a joke. It's a gift from Russia. I don't know. But anyway, the intention of...
I think that regulation is about like if you're an ambassador or anybody in the government, you're technically supposed to just fill out a form and report if you were given.
Yeah.
You don't.
As I said, I didn't get through all the legalese. I just thought it was really interesting that they cited, they had a specific citation to this law. But yeah, it's so if you go back to the WikiLeaks page, because I want to show off the CryptoKitties because some of their names are funny. So basically, those two kitties, they want to donate them to Trump and Clinton, and apparently they would have to declare them because they're going to be worth thousands of dollars upon being donated. So these are the other offspring that they are not donating to Trump and Clinton. These are the ones they're auctioning. We have NSA spying kitty. We have Iraq war kitty. We have CIA Vault 7 kitty. Syria files kitty. Cablegate kitty and Kremlin spying kitty. TPP kitty and Afghan war kitty. I'm sure you can see a pattern because most of these things most of these cats are named after major document releases that they've made over their history. So that's why the names are significant. So if you want to, I someone on Twitter, I think it was Nick Carter, said that probably this is the most 2017 thing ever to be able to buy a digital cat based on the Ethereum blockchain that is named NSA spying. So if you are interested in supporting WikiLeaks, you can take part in the bidding for these cats.
I
have fun with it.
I want that TPP kitty so I can donate it to Trump for knocking down the TPP.
Oh man, this CryptoKitty thing, I don't know. Just one of those things where it's like I didn't really catch it. I understand it's like people get excited about cats on the internet, and it's this Ethereum. People get excited about Ethereum, and so, but like now it's just gotten to this point where you got a Clinton CryptoKitty, you got a Trump CryptoKitty, and they're supposed to be getting, like, what are they going to do with them? That'd be funny, just to go ask Clinton, what are you going to do with your CryptoKitty?
Well, actually,
I'm just mad that Wiki found a way to make these CryptoKitties useful. Just make a mockery out of them. I mean, it's make a mockery out of all the people that are receiving them and the names and everything. I'm really annoyed by it all, but I got to give them credit.
Yeah, if you go back to the section where it cites those regulations I described, they actually think that because of the declaration, or how Trump and Clinton would have to declare them as gifts, that they will be yes. So go up a little bit, Shinobi. A little bit. Okay, so yeah, right there. So under it says Trump's tender tabby will become federal property to be enjoyed by future presidents via custodians at the U.S. National Archives. So apparently their plan is to get a CryptoKitty into the U.S. National Archives. Long live Ethereum.
Oh man, look here. This is what my CryptoKitty thinks.
Oh,
he
yes.
is not amused.
Oh man, he's just sitting there like, what? You're gonna lock a cat up in a library in a filing cabinet? You sick fuck. I'm gonna starve and be stuck in a filing cabinet with my own shit and piss. You're a sick son of a bitch, Julian Assange.
I think if you saw the picture, he's thinking those aren't kitties, those are squirrels.
Yeah.
Oh man. So I guess hi Kitty. I guess the last thing we have to mention is kind of a little bit of a downer to end on. So sorry folks, but apparently Ross Ulbricht's family went to go visit him for the holidays, and they and all the other family members of the inmates were pretty much refused entry and told the prison was on a lockdown. And so Ross is going to be spending Christmas alone, and that's never a fun thing to have to deal with, especially in the situation he's in right now. So I mean, I know my thoughts are going out to him, guys. And it might seem like a bit of a lost cause, but his family is not going to stop fighting this and trying to get his situation and his case revisited. So every penny helps. Their address is on the Twitter account at free_Ross Twitter.
And if you're not familiar with that, just the whole Ross Ulbricht thing, the one thing I'll mention is that they did when he was on trial, the prosecution told the jury that he had basically hired out murder, right? That he had hired people to be killed. Or he had contracted out some killings, and the defense wanted to provide evidence that wasn't true. And the judge said that they were not allowed to provide any evidence that wasn't true because he wasn't being charged with it. So they didn't actually put it on the paperwork to charge him with murder, right? Or murder for hire or whatever it is. And because of that, the judge said, well, technically you're not allowed to respond to the claim by the prosecutor in front of the jury that you killed people or hired people to be killed because you're not being charged with that particular crime. So that's just one of many miscarriages of justice that guy suffered. You know, if you have any confidence in our justice system, just look into that story.
The thing that's really fucked up about that is multiple people had access to the account. So not only was he accused of that, not allowed to speak to his innocence on that matter, but there is very concrete evidence that he's not the only one who had access to that account.
Including the FBI agents that are currently in jail. Not because they're so untrustworthy that they stole money.
Yeah.
They stole Bitcoin.
So yeah, how do you prove that, let alone that was legitimately done, but that it was even him who did it, because multiple people had access to that account. And the entire thing was just done to pretty much prime the jury into having this picture of him that would inform their decision based on the other charges.
Yeah, I don't think there's anything more upsetting than the way that trial played out, and to see our government, the U.S. government, so just like rule out entire arguments and definitions from the courtroom because it's like, you know, JW saying it's not in the charges, and so you know, you can't bring up these words and definitions in the courtroom, and it was very upsetting. But you know, this is why we're in Bitcoin, really. It's like this justice, the system is injustice. It's not justice, and it's upsetting. I wish they would at least let his family come in to see him. You know, I mean, like, it's like you've already got him. It's like, where the hell is he gonna go? Just let his family in to come see him. It's really super upsetting.
Everybody in that prison, right? Everybody that was looking forward to seeing their family, they're all finding out very last minute that they can't see him. It's totally upsetting. But to try to have a good news spin on it, man, when Bitcoin hit 20,000 all of a sudden, I really thought, man, Ross could be out in 5 years, right? Like we could see the defunding of this really ridiculous form of slavery where we just incarcerate people for nonviolent crimes, which means they're not crimes, victimless crimes, which is an oxymoron. And you know, if Bitcoin adoption happens fast enough, they won't be able to fleece people enough to afford to do this. So, you know, I definitely didn't think we were going to see $20,000 Bitcoin this year. I don't think we're going to see $200,000 Bitcoin next year. I really don't. But that doesn't mean that we won't. And if we do, man, we're getting. I think that's his best hope for freedom, not, you know, an appeals court anyway, or the Supreme Court. So hopefully they can keep hanging in there, keep up their spirits, and as they see that price skyrocket, get more and more encouraged.
Right on, man.
To continue with the point that you made about the fact that they ignored or they prevented the defense from offering evidence that he was not the one who was doing the attempted assassination contracts or whatever they were. They actually, if I remember correctly, they did find there was evidence that it was actually one of the agents who ended up stealing a lot of the Bitcoin who was actually behind those assassination plans.
Right.
As a way of dirtying the record. And I believe, because we did report on it recently about one of those agents getting his prison sentence lengthened, but I think it was maybe a couple of years. It wasn't a life sentence. Like, it's nothing compared to what Ross has to deal with. Hopefully he doesn't actually have to serve that full sentence. But the idea that can have a corrupt agent taint someone's record and then have that be used to dirty the trial, even though they didn't even bother to charge him with it, and then there's no way to defend against it. Like, that's like that can. Yeah, and I like I pointed out earlier, the Catherine Hahn, the one who joined the Coinbase board, you know, she wasn't involved in Ross's trial. She was involved in Silk Road 2.0, but I'm still, to this day, I'm extremely upset with her I mean, just I don't like her on the basis that she's a federal prosecutor, but I even dislike her more because she was the one who prosecuted one of the agents, and she made absolutely no effort whatsoever to get Ross's sentencing overturned on the basis that his trial had been tainted with the actions of this corrupt agent. And that's why, like, if she's someone who's welcome at Coinbase, by the way, Coinbase almost, because I guess, unfortunately, for a while, Ross's mom was actually accepting donations. The donation address was actually a Coinbase address. And when she tried to withdraw it several months ago, she actually almost lost the money because Coinbase froze her account. And that was actually I think it was right before or right after this Catherine Hahn federal prosecutor joined the Coinbase board. It was just such a twisted, circumstance of events that you have a federal prosecutor who was involved in one of the Silk Road trials who could have helped Ross, and then Coinbase is screwing with their money. Like, and if on a personal note for me, like the first time I ever did or I ever helped with a live YouTube show was actually the WCN live stream of Ross's sentencing back in May 2015. So, now it's more than 2 years later and I'm still doing this thing, but it's like, that's where I had to start with. I started by, it was because Chris was on the actual live stream, but I was feeding him like media posts and Twitter things in the background. It just feels so rotten to, be at Christmas time where we're all celebrating the price high, even though it dumped a significant amount. We're all still celebrating the fact that, Bitcoin is finally being recognized to some extent, and Ross is still in prison. And
yeah, it's super upsetting, but I think JW's right in the sense that I didn't think we'd get to 20,000 this year. And that price going up really high to where we can, these guys aren't going to be able to control the systems they control anymore because they're not going to be able to move around the value that they're moving around. And I don't know, that's why I've got my head down at this project, because I feel like it's an answer to all these big problems. And, we can throw all our fist up in the air at this court and say, you're fucking wrong. They're not going to listen. It's going to take that system change from underneath them before we can change it. And yeah, I mean, like, at least Bitcoin's in a good place and it's going to keep getting better. And I don't think he's going to be in there for life. There's the lifespan of this current construct of our justice system. It doesn't have much life left in it. So I think he's going to make it out.
Yeah, and if you want to help, either donate or learn how to code and help out on a Bitcoin project, I couldn't tell you which one's going to be more likely to succeed. I mean, I know I would have a tendency to think that that just helping Bitcoin along a little further, it's not just going to help Ross, right? But it's going to help all of I think there's like 1 million people right now that are in prison for victimless crimes. And a lot of that is marijuana. And we've already legalized that in so many states that it's just it's just absurd at this point. So yeah, I mean, that's what this fight's all about, right? We're trying to get rid of this current version of slavery that we're all under, and see what the world can be like without it. So hang in there, Ross.
Yeah, hang in there, bud.
yeah, and I also wanted to the name of the director of the documentary escapes me, but there's a really good documentary. If you're not familiar with Ross's story, you should see that documentary. Unfortunately, I can't remember the name of the director. That would make it easier to find. But for the moment, I can read a quote because apparently Ross was quoted 2 years ago. Because I assume he was asked like whether he regrets his decision. This must have been a quote from the trial, and he said, "I wish I could go back to convince myself to take a different path, but I can't do that." And I'm not like there's two ways to read that. I think you could interpret it as you know, he can't go back and change the past, even though he wants to. But you could also interpret it as, you know, even if he could go back and change the past, he wouldn't be able to convince himself to choose differently because he knew what he was doing was the right thing, despite the consequences. Alex Winter, yeah, that's so. If you want to watch a really good documentary about Ross Ulbricht, there's a documentary by Alex Winter, Deep Web. It has some really good quotes from Ross in it.
Yeah, totally. The thing that always gets me the most pissed off when I think about everything that he's gone through, and probably because it hits close to home for me, is that it's because he read guys like Rothbard and Mises, right? And he started understanding economics, and he started understanding that we are living under just a more sophisticated version of slavery. And that's what the judge said to him when she explained why she was putting him in jail for so long. It wasn't because he had sold drugs or tried to kill people. She was really explicit that it was because he had some really dangerous ideas, and she's right. These are very, very dangerous ideas, and they're dangerous to people that want to have power and control and force over others. They're not dangerous for peaceful people. And Bitcoin's, just a manifestation of that that long-term effort over 30 plus years of the cypherpunk movement, and it's just picking up steam. So it's still a really sad fight, especially if you end up in jail before it's over. But it's headed in the right direction. It kind of at times a frightening clip.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I guess for our last thoughts, I guess everybody keep Ross in your thoughts. And if you have any spare money, his family can definitely use the donations to fight the situation he's in. And I guess, like I said earlier, we're not going to be doing a show on Sunday because of the holidays. We'll be back on Tuesday next week, but we do have that discussion with a Bcash supporter that should be up in the next day or two, and hopefully another Easter egg to drop, maybe as a Christmas present. But I guess if you guys liked what you saw, you can subscribe and like, and if not, well, unsubscribe and get the heck out of here. Have a Merry Christmas, everybody.
Merry Christmas, everyone.
Bye.